Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to be talking about Paige Young's final statement. Paige Young was a Playboy playmate who met an untimely death, in my opinion. And I'm going to give a caveat. Like most true crime stories, this one is not for the faint of heart. This video seeks to explore the final statement of Paige Young. And in light of the documentary The Secrets of Playboy that's being released on A&E, and by the way, if you don't have A&E subscription, I think 6 of the episodes are unlocked currently, and Paige Young is included in one of those 6 unlocked episodes. So we are going to explore the untimely death of Paige Young. Note, we will not be showing any explicit pictures, but we will mention her manner of death. She left a final statement to the world that was not heard until now. And I want to ask, was this a cover-up? I believe there was a cover-up involved in her death being reported. So let's start at the beginning. First, I want to say that I research most of my videos from newspapers.com articles. I have a subscription service, and here I tried to reinvent the wheel. I did hours and hours and hours of research through newspapers.com first, because I like to try to get my own impression of her. And then once I went on the internet, I realized somebody else had done the same thing. And so I want to give full credit to PaigeYoung1968.com. The reporter here has almost all the same articles I have. So if you don't want to stop my video and read the articles, if I don't read a portion of it, go to PaigeYoung1968.com. This birth certificate is from that source. Diana Lee Cotterill, later known as Paige Young, was born on March 15th, 1944. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's the Pisces thing, because I'm also Pisces. I just feel drawn to her. She was a green-eyed beauty, and she was born at Griffith Park Maternity Home. Her father, Robert, was an aviator in the U.S. Army, and her mother, Donna, was a housewife, and she also has a sister named Constance or Connie. Here's an early newspaper clipping of Diana. Here she's showing her art. And this came from the Valley News of April 7th, 1957. And I'll circle Diana. This article said that she was declared the winner. It also mentions that she went to Van Nuys Junior High School. I believe there's some questioning about where she went to high school, but we know that she did go to Van Nuys Junior High School. Anna, who later changed her name to Paige, was a professional painter in the Impressionistic style who lived off her paintings in 1967. She was self-taught, and she started by painting animals. Here's a picture with Paige with her painting of Truman Capote. He was her favorite author. Paige was painting and modeling since the age of 18. And when she was working as a model, she was commonly working with Alice and Peter, I think it's Gowland, and he commonly used her as a model, and he is allegedly the person that suggested that she submit her pictures to Playboy magazine. This article is from the Edmonton Journal in 1969. It says, "She's an artist. She lived off her paintings in 1967 and has done ingenue-type photographic modeling. When a photographer friend suggested test shots for Playboy, she went ahead with the idea." Again, I believe this is the husband and wife team of Peter and Alice Gowland, who pretty much used her between 1963 and 1965 in many modeling sessions. This article from the Central New Jersey home gives us a little more of her backstory. She started her professional art career painting animal pictures, primarily horses, on a commission at the age of 16. She loves animals and spent part of her short visit to New York by touring Bronx Zoo. She hopes to be back to the city in late summer to take up residence and continue her art career, as well as pursue a theatrical career. Quote, "No, I'm not a singer. Heavy drama is her forte." I found this photo on the Find a Grave site under her name, and I love it. Look at it. It's so 70s with the 70s hair and the funky outfit and the amazing tile work. I mean, this is just a perfect photo, isn't it? So anyway, allegedly he took about 4,000 pictures of her. That's what she said. It's probably an exaggeration, because think, back then you were shooting in 35 millimeter film, and you know there's only, I don't know what, 24 at the most shots on a roll. So, I mean, 4,000 is a lot. But, I think he used her a lot for 2 solid years in different fashion photos. So I wouldn't be surprised if more photos pop up. He was a specialist in like beauty modeling, like cheesecake type of photos, photographing the female body, things like that. This is from the forbiddenbookofbeauty.wordpress.com. Miss November 1968, Paige Young. Paige was a talented artist whose portrait of a then youthful Truman Capote appeared in her picture story, the last produced for Playboy by Peter and Alice Goland. Her promising career ended in 1974 when she took an overdose of sleeping pills. Note, this is incorrect. This is a fiction. This is not true. Quote, I was surprised when Paige Young came to visit us to talk about being a playmate. She had her hair pulled back and wound in a braid on top of her head, and I thought, I can't see that girl being in Playboy. Then she came back again, and she had her beautiful chestnut hair down, and she was perfect for it. Peter still has the back scratcher from that centerfold, Alice Goland said. Yeah, so the centerfold that's used has her holding Peter's back scratcher. So this is what his wife Alice had to say about Paige. Paige was a country girl who loved horses and was a wonderful artist. She'd led a very sheltered life. Then she was thrust into the glamour world of Hollywood, and it ruined her. She didn't have the self-confidence to say, I don't need to do this. It's just odd to me because in her interviews that she gives while she's on like a Playboy tour for Playboy After Dark and all these promotional tours that she does for 2 years, she always talks about the photographer submitting her photos and that maybe like she was encouraged by him. But the way Alice, his wife, tells it, it's almost like she came and said, this is what I want to do, and she didn't have the self-confidence to say, I don't need to do this. Don't understand why there's a difference there, but there is. Then it says, about 5 years after her centerfold appearance and following various family and romantic conflicts, Paige died of a barbiturate overdose that was apparently self-inflicted. That's fiction. This article is from the Gazette, June 30th, 1969. It's entitled 4,000 Pictures to Success, talking about Paige. She'll be seen on some of those 52 editions of the show on CFCF, where she appeared on Like Young Saturday. Granted that the muggy weekend weather did not leave her looking as cool as the magazine showed Oliver to be last November, it's evident that Hefner's taste in how women should look, at least in print, is very hard to satisfy. That's snarky. That's like saying she didn't live up to her image in a centerfold. Like, who would? Oh, you know what? When I first clipped this, I didn't notice that tone. I don't like it. Miss Young said it took 4,000 pictures of her submitted to Playboy over 2.5 years by her indestructible photographer, Peter Goland, to land her without one goose pimple on a Playboy fold-out. Gosh, the misogyny is real ripe in this one, huh? And this is the top of the centerfold, where she looks absolutely gorgeous in the whole entire picture, but I'm not going to show it here. But yeah, I mean, apparently she went around with her long natural brown hair, usually no makeup. Her voice was really lyrical. She had a dog, a Weimaraner named Josh. People all say that she was intelligent and she was unpretentious, that she liked hiking, she liked sailing, scuba diving. Apparently, Paige was briefly married to Mark Segal before the pictures were taken, and they were divorced, I believe, in 1964. And her attorney that she used was the famed attorney Marvin Mitchelson. She seems kind of like a hippie in a way, in retrospect, because she lived in Venice, California. She had an art studio. She called herself the Wolf Girl. Well, I'll read this snippet of this article. She went around barefoot in big floppy hats, tooling around the city in her yellow Mustang. Here is an article from the Philadelphia Daily News. This is June 26, 1969. She says, I've been howling at the moon, confessed Paige, the hazel-eyed intellectual who posed tantalizingly as the last November's Playmate of the Month. They used to call me Wolf Girl, chuckled the 22-year-old California native, bearing sparkling eyes rather than dangerous fangs. I have a great rapport with the moon. I find it compelling, and I'm very affected by it. A professional artist, Miss Young lives in Malibu and works in a surfside studio in Venice, California. She also dabbles in rhyme. almost always during the moonlight hours. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I find a full moon, I usually get right out of bed and start writing. This article is from the Boston Globe, November 1st, 1968. Apparently, Paige, when she was giving interviews, did not give the stock answers. So she said that I'm not the usual big bosomy playmate. Anyway, actually, I put on weight to do the centerfold pictures, which are terribly staged and not sexy. Oh, love you, girl. She says, I got up to 1:30 from 1:13, enjoying myself eating. The first place I put on weight is in the bosom, and I needed it for those pictures. So she's sitting there telling you, this is staged, this is a fantasy, this is not a reality for me. This is from the Montreal Star, July 2nd, 1969. The interviewer asks Paige what the reaction was to her being in the nude throughout the world. And she paused to the interviewer and says, my family wouldn't speak to me for a month, and I had to get used to being stared at when I walked down the street. And she said that men look at you with a there she is expression on their faces, but you get used to it. And in another interview, she says this, I'm pro-nudity, it's art. Look at any of your fashion magazines today and you'll find nudity. And the interviewer added, she didn't say it, but I could have added theater, movies, and TV as well. This article is from the Philadelphia Daily News of June 26, 1969. Paige says she wants to be a dramatic actress, but, quote, that doesn't include going through the starlet routine. There are thousands of young girls in Hollywood who want what I don't want. The parties, the premieres, the phony dates. Films from a creative viewpoint can be very exciting. I want to be a film artist. My goal is not to act, but to be thoroughly committed. This quote is from the Minneapolis Star, April 8th, 1969, and Paige is talking about people's expectations. She says, they have a certain idea of how you will be. I think any model or well-known actress runs into this. You have built in a facade of expectations in your photos or appearances. I can't put my finger on it, but you can just feel the difference between what you are and what they expected. You never fit the image they seem to have imagined. She also mentions in another article that when she was 25 that Hugh had, counseled her, coached her, suggested her to say that she was 23. In other words, to shave 2 years off her age. This is from the Boston Globe on November 1st, 1968. Perhaps Ralph Nader would have been a better choice than Paige Young as the leading exhibit of the auto show. Nader is more clearly identified with the automotive industry, but he is also flat-chested and unsleek, and sleek, undulating bodies are the motif. They are the come-ons at the auditorium's showing of the 1969 models, and Miss Young, a 1944 model out of Los Angeles, is not outdone by anything metallic in the collection surrounding her. As Playboy magazine's Miss November, Paige Young appears on the centerfold, stripped down, as the car dealer said, without a single extra or accessory. Actually, she had a back scratcher, but okay. Although she is aging for a playmate, in her words, at 24, Miss Young is obviously a cream puff. Her day-long appearances at the auto show have been more conventional. A black knit blouse, leotards, and white miniskirt decorate her as she sits at the head of the second floor receiving line, signing and giving away fully clothed pictures of herself. So let's talk about money. Paige appeared as Miss November of 1968, and she made $3,000 for her centerfold. That was the going rate at that time for Playboy centerfolds, $3,000. Playboy then would make things like merch, like this puzzle here that I found on the internet. So things like the merch, anything that came out of that centerfold, she didn't get any kind of residuals from the merch or anything like that. She just got that flat $3,000. And then Paige entered into a 2-year promotions contract with Playboy. She was one of 6 or 7 playmates who would travel around and do the promotions in US, in Canada, and Japan. And that's why part of the reasons why we have all these articles, because she was doing her 2-year promotions contract. So she would go to places like auto shows. They might have 250,000 visitors, snowmobile shows, winter fun shows, boat trailer shows, sport shows, you name it. And she would, like they said in the previous article, she would sit at a table and personally autograph photographs for the folks. And, she was compared to the Cars in one interview. And she, said she was aging as a playmate. So she was aware, And at these appearances, she would make $100 a day. So, I mean, this is a way to make money. You weren't going to make a lot of money off that centerfold. You make the money doing these appearances. So a year after her spread in November of 1968, Paige was doing the circuit and traveling around the globe, like we've seen the U.S. She went to Canada, to Montreal, also to Japan. I haven't found any Japanese articles, but I'm sure they're out there. She said that she began acting lessons and that she appeared on the Jonathan Winters show. I guess that was a TV show. People spoke about her having a pleasing personality. And again, she wanted to parlay this appearance in Playboy and the promotions into serious dramatic acting. Paige appeared on Playboy After Dark. It was a clothed syndicated television show revolving around Playboy, and it was taped at the CBS studios but made to represent the Playboy penthouse or the Playboy mansion. It aired about 12:15 a.m. on, I think it was Saturday nights, probably was Sunday morning. So let me insert this quote here. This article is from the Akron Beacon Journal, and Dick Snippy is not having Playboy After Dark. It says, Playboy After Dark for this late hour is no accident, of course. By 12:15 a.m., the children are supposed to have been comatose for several hours, and if Mother hasn't joined them, perhaps she's absorbed in Chapter 16 of Portnoy's complaint, just easing her curiosity, mind you, which leaves old Dad free to indulge himself in fantasy. Playboy After Dark is a fantasy world, and Hugh Hefner is not so much a program host as he is a proxy. Hef is supposed to be standing in for all of you who imagine you'd like to live the sort of life Hep pretends he is living. Yeah, Dick. Dick goes on to describe the Playboy After Dark facade, almost like a Cribs, an MTV Cribs, where he's like, come on in, folks, and he opens a door, but it's all on a set. And, they would have jazz artists and stuff, and it was cheesy, apparently. Hef would answer the door again. Somebody else, another surprise celebrity, would come traipsing in, and the whole phony business would be repeated, including the hand clapping and the squealing exclamations from the young broads. Now viewers are supposed to be intrigued as well as entertained by these weekly glimpses into the life of Hugh Hefner, the official Playboy pad, a recreation thereof. A parade of performers bent upon amusing Hef. Almost reminds me, on the side, almost like a king, like entertain the king. And the decorous chicks strewn around about the apartment like a living tie rack from which the master of the hutch might make a selection. But were the viewers intrigued and entertained? So Dick Snippy gets a quote out of Paige, and she says, Hugh is into his Edwardian thing. He asks her, what is the attraction of Playboy After Dark? And she volunteers, well, it's the Playboy mystique. And he asks her, well, what is the Playboy mystique? And she replies, I guess it's Hefner's own personal mystique. And then he's like, well, what's Hugh Hefner's mystique? This is almost like a law school query, right? You just keep going deeper and deeper. And she goes like, I really don't know. I don't know Hugh very well. I only met him only briefly. See? And he says, as you can tell, the essential truths flowed freely. Well, I mean, she wasn't a liar. She wasn't going to sit there and puff him up and lie for him. Here are some more articles of Paige. This is being interviewed by Richard Costello. And some of these quotes I've already used, so I'm not going to go over it again. But I do like this picture of her walking away. The following information I'm going to relay is coming from the PaigeYoung1968.com. I believe it's reporter Holly Slavic. And she interviewed an ex-boyfriend of Paige when he was still alive, now that he's passed. But she dated artist Richard Sample, and he gave Miss Slavic 2 interviews about Paige. And here are the revelations. I'm just going to summarize them that she shared on her website. 1, Richard was handsome, and he was Paige's boyfriend for a while. He met her in Malibu in the 1960s, and they shared an interest in art. And when he was asked, he recalled that Bill Cosby used to pick up Paige from the Sunset Strip Playboy Club after her shift, But he said that, quote, Bill Cosby was always trying to put the make on Paige. She didn't want anything to do with him. She ignored him. That's his quote to Holly. Richard and Paige used to hang out with the other Venice artists at Barney's Beanery in West Hollywood, and he did not think that Paige would harm herself. He said that she only smoked weed and drank alcohol occasionally and didn't do any other kinds of drugs, and that he also felt that Paige went downhill after Hugh Hefner. And within a mere 6 years after her Playboy centerfold was published, everything was over for Paige Young. But mind you, I don't think she was 6 years removed from Hef and all his buddies. You know, Richard said that Cosby was after her. And in the Secrets of Playboy, there are allegations that she was very upset about Hef and some of his cronies, Bill Cosby and John Huston. Let's get into it. And just to prove that not only these men knew each other, they were hanging around together. This is about 9 days before her death. This is from the Chicago Tribune, March 29th, 1974. There was a party, a bash, hosted by Hugh at the mansion. And they listed some of the people that had been judges for the Bunny of the Year. Rex Reed, Connie Stevens, Timothy Bottoms, Bill Cosby, Larry Zonka, Leroy Neiman. So, you know, they all, along with 600 or more people, were at the Holmby Hills Playboy Mansion West. Unless you think what I'm going to tell you is a conspiracy theory, maybe it's more of a conspiracy fact if USA Today is willing to put it in print. This is under Hugh Hefner's Secrets of the Playboy Mansion, USA Today. A Playboy centerfold killed herself, leaving behind a mural that read, Hugh Hefner is the devil. Keep in mind, Paige Young was an artist. So this is imbued with meaning. This isn't just someone who snapped and lost it and just scrawled stuff on the wall. She was a full-on artist. And this is a statement that was never shown. And this is the most important statement she ever made because she was willing to stake her life on it, right? Paige Young, an artist in 1968 Playboy centerfold, shot herself in her West Hollywood apartment in April 7th, 1974. She was found lying on a blood-soaked American flag beneath a mural that read, Hugh Hefner is the devil. According to Melanie Myers, a celebrity astrologer who was her neighbor and found the body, Young felt she'd been used and abused by Hefner and his famous friends at the Playboy Mansion, including Bill Cosby. Myers says Young told her she was filmed having sex at the mansion, and the experience set Young off the deep end. Playboy's connection to the tragedy was hushed up, Myers says. She killed herself to leave a message behind for other women to be careful that these men were damaging and predatory, Myers says, but the message got squashed. The film will be when Paige finally gets to speak for herself, implying that this is finally coming out in the Secrets of Playboy. And you know why I have this picture up on the screen instead of some carefully redacted crime scene photo? You know why? Because there isn't a carefully redacted crime scene photo. Allegedly, there isn't anything. But no, there's nothing. It's all hushed up. Now, can you imagine that the LAPD come upon this horrible scene of a model laying on an American flag on Palm Sunday with a mural? And you know, if she's an artist, she had a full-on mural of all these pictures of Hef and then scrawled, Hugh Hefner is the devil over all of it, and it doesn't make the press? Excuse me? Does that make any sense to you whatsoever? No. Just recently, the Daily Mail did some research and said that they can reveal that Cosby dated Young for months at the height of her fame. One of Cosby's victims, attorney Tamara Green, knew Paige from modeling circles and recalls seeing the pair together. Tamara Green recalls that she ran into Paige while in El Paso, Texas around 1970 and learned that she was dating Bill Cosby. Quote, I was there seeing my boyfriend and Paige called me and said Bill was on tour and she was traveling with him. They picked me up at my friend's house, and I remember sitting in the back of a stretch black limo with them both, and Bill wanted to score some drugs. And I called around and found a bag of pot someplace on the edge of El Paso. Paige was into her drugs and Bill wanted to get her some, and she was along on the trip like his pet dog. She was a very subdued person, more like the moon on the water in terms of her personality. They were clearly well acquainted with each other. It didn't seem like a new thing. As far as I know, they dated for a while. Paige always seemed in a stupor, a daze, like he was controlling her. All I remember is that their relationship wasn't healthy. The Daily Mail included a picture of the West Hollywood apartment, and they said the full extent of if or how Cosby contributed to the young starlet's demise may never be known, but what is clear is that she would later blame him and a host of other Hollywood stars for her fragile state of mind that led to her suicide. The Daily Mail describes it as a scene reminiscent of a 1970s B-horror movie. And that, they mentioned that she was found on a blood-soaked American flag on a double bed, and that she had in her right hand a .38 caliber revolver that she had used on herself. But that she wore a peaceful grin on her face, a suggestion that she had found solace in death away from the torment of life. Maybe because she thought someone would get her message and didn't know that it was going to be hushed up and been called a barbiturate overdose for decades. And the woman, Melanie Myers, that was interviewed on The Secrets of Playboy, was also, I guess, interviewed by the Daily Mail, and said Paige had the whole thing planned out to the last detail. It was Palm Sunday, and she came to me to tell me she was going to herself. And she stayed in the back house of the duplex where we lived, and I was at the bathroom window. And she comes up to the window and calls out to me, "I want to show you something." And I was like, "What are you up to now, Paige?" I couldn't be bothered with any more of her drama. But she was like, "No, you've got to come and see it." So I go to her apartment, and she gave me a guided tour of her scene in her bedroom. It's chilling. There was a large American flag draped across her bed, and there was a pentagram laid out on the wooden floor. I remember her showing me around it because it was somehow important, but I didn't know what it meant. But it was the bedroom wall that shocked Myers the most. More than a pentagram on the floor, really? It was covered floor to ceiling with photos of Hugh Hefner. There were news clippings, magazine articles, everything you could think of written across it was something like, "Hugh Hefner is the devil." The whole wall was a shrine saying, "I hate Hugh Hefner." The crux of her anger was against him. That was a message she wanted to get across to me. She was pointing up at things, showing me around it. She put a lot of work into this. It must have taken her days. And Myers said that Young then calmly explained that she planned to harm herself. But the witness here says that since they weren't the best of friends and she was always bitching to Paige about her dog, that she was scared for herself, actually. So the witness talked to the Daily Mail about how after Paige had done the deed, and the police had arrived on the scene and she had gone inside with them, that she saw the note that Paige had left behind and that it was read, and the whole thing was about her anger towards the men who she believed had chewed her up and spat her out. And, quote, "The two men who got the most attention were Hugh Hefner and the director John Huston. I know she dated Huston for a while and had gotten back from a trip to Ireland with him. And she also vented against all the other Hollywood stars who had used her." Lord have mercy, right? And so you can go to the Daily Mail. They have a rather long article on this. I know these death reports are hard to read, but it does back up the witness's version of events. It lists the cause of death as GSR, gunshot wound to the head, and noting a condition that was contributing to the death was suicide. And the report that goes along with it is compiled by the LA County Chief Medical Examiner, and it says decedent, that's the person who's died, was found in the residence by friend Melanie Myers, decedent lying on the bed with .38 revolver in RT, that's right hand, and also adds possible note at scene. So if I have this right, there's two different witnesses that talk about Paige being concerned about an illicit tape being made of her. Melanie here and the other witness. And she was terrified of it coming out. And that day you knew your career was going to be over once it got around. This is what Melanie told the Daily Mail. For weeks, all she could think about was getting a hold of that tape. She thought it was going to ruin her. I wonder if this is one of those illicit tapes that were allegedly destroyed in the ocean. from Hefner's collection, allegedly, conspiracy theory. Because if it was John Huston, then why wouldn't she have his name on the wall? Why did she have Hef as the honorary person on the wall? That makes me think that he had the tape, but that's just my speculation. And to go back to Cosby quickly, ABC News felt confident enough to print that Cosby also admitted to relationships with women outside of his marriage, including Sean Thompson and Paige Young. So that would have been from his deposition, more than likely. So I went back to the holy grail of the Paige Young documents on the internet. This is Holly Slavic, and apparently she's put here, I located a friend of Paige Young's from the Malibu days, and we spoke twice on the phone. His name is Henry, and he said he was just good friends with Paige. I remember many hikes with her in Topanga Canyon. Henry told me about a time they were together approximately 1970 where Paige lived, and she broke down crying. When he asked her why, she told him Bill Cosby had AR'd her. Henry worked in the TV business and always thought Bill was a nice guy. No, said Paige, he's not. He's scum. Also a piece of S and a bastard, and don't even get me started, were said to Henry by Paige about BC. I asked Henry, did Paige say Cosby drugged her prior to the R? And Henry said she implied it by saying she came to and realized she'd been R'd. Henry added that Paige motioned towards her dresser and said something about Bill making a check out to her. Henry glanced over and saw a check on her desk. He said it had several zeros. If he has any current depositions pending for any of the allegations, I would be curious if someone would ask him if he ever paid Paige Young, gave her any money, ever wrote her a check. I would be curious to know if that's accurate. And I just want to say for the next bit, because it was under Charla's Labyrinth blogspot, and anybody can get on the internet and say whatever they want, if they're anonymous or if they're not really clear with who they are. So I just wanted to add this. This is not a picture of Paige, but there's a note here at the bottom. Op-ed, I totally believe the accusations, being that I work for the LAPD Van Nuys Division, 1971 to 1974. I remember one of my sergeants discussing this case. It was hushed up at the higher levels of management, speculation being a cover-up on pressure from the entertainment moguls. All I can honestly say, after dealing with the bookings of numerous celebrities during this period of time, from DUI, drugs, perversions, disturbing the peace, and so on, the stories I could tell. Maybe another time I will. Then someone asks, will you say any more about the case and what they heard from the LAPD? And then Jack says, well, all I remember is that they said it was such a sad case and that she was abused by the Hollywood elite. And then the person says, thanks, Jack. I requested a copy of the LAPD incident report for the day of Paige Young's event, and it came back saying they don't have any records for it. Obviously not true. The police reports are probably thrown out per Hefner's request. Well, we know that there were some reports because we've seen some very, very blurry reports, but there should be a full, incident report with everything involved, not just saying that the incident happened, there was a gun in her hand with none of the scene painted. So this is very odd. And also what's odd to me is the fact that then it's gone on to be painted like a barbiturate overdose in so many different publications. There's also been scuttlebutt about a centerfold curse and numbers, the playmates who are affected by this hex. You know what? I don't think it's mystical. I don't think it's metaphysical. I think it's something that's more literal. It's really not a mystery for the ages. It's literal men, and maybe even some women, behaving repeatedly in a manner that results in the abuse of women. Some live to soldier on, and some break. Okay? That's what I think, especially back in the day where people were not PC. They, didn't behave properly. They did all kinds of abusive things. And I don't think it's a curse or a hex. I think it's literally people responsible for it. Paige Young was cremated and her ashes were scattered at sea near the Santa Monica shoreline by her mother, Donna, and I'm assuming her sister as well. PaigeYoung1968.com, that website has lots of amazing photographs of Paige, so she's left that behind. Also, some pictures of her artwork, but then when I tried to find the artwork in some of these other locations, I couldn't find them anymore, but you can find pictures of her artwork online. And again, it's a cautionary tale, but now it's kind of one that we all kind of know you don't want to be a playmate and go to the Playboy Mansion. And we all kind of know that that isn't what it's cracked up to be. Heck, I even think that she knew back then it wasn't what it was cracked up to be. But by that same token, maybe she thought she could trust some of the players around Hef, and maybe it looks like she didn't think she could. So that's my takeaway from it, is that I think we should respect what she left behind and not try to paint it as some kind of an accidental overdose of some kind, when it clearly was an intentional act done to make a splash, done to make a point. And, you know, as an artist, I got to respect that that is what she wanted to be left behind. She wanted it discussed, and maybe an early Me Too movement would have, occurred. But, I don't think it would have happened. It was the 1970s. You're going to need another 4 decades before that kind of stuff would come to light. So I made this video to honor Paige Young, and I hope you found it enlightening. I know it's rather depressing. The whole Secrets of Playboy was extremely depressing, but I think it's important to highlight things in history, how they happened, and not glamorize something, a time that maybe wasn't so glamorous. And so we can do better in the future. So if you like this video, please hit the like. Please hit the thumbs up, and stay sub to me for some more true crime. And without further ado, have an excellent day. Bye.